my extreme pleasure to have our guest, who is Dawn Surrat. And Dawn, did I say your name right? Dawn Surrat? Okay. In lieu of me just fumbling and saying things about Dawn, I'm going to read the introduction that was sent out earlier because I think it'll do a great job giving you a little bit of an overview of Dawn as an artist. So Dawn's going to discuss her use of three-dimensional objects and mixed media to tell a story, to create empathy, and to connect to a memory. She accomplishes this with a variety of mediums and techniques, including image transfer, dry and wet media, digital imagery, box building, and bookbinding. The typical objects incorporated into her creations include boxes, tins, spools, frames, bottles, and ephemera. Dawn earned her bachelor's degree in studio arts from the University of North Carolina in Greensboro and a bachelor and master's degree in social work from the University of Georgia. Her years of work with dying patients in hospice settings is the backbone of her imagery. She combines photographs with photography-based book structures, installations, and objects as visual meditations exploring concepts of grief, transition, healing, and spirituality. Her work has been widely shown and is held in private and permanent collections across the United States. And she is a 2016 Critical Mass finalist and a 2018 nominee for the Royal Photography Society's 100 Heroines. And what drew me to Dawn as an artist is because we both have a creative art background in traditional art media. And personally, I like to do combinations and mixed media works combining art and photography. So I came across Dawn's imagery and I said to myself, wow, she would be a great guest for our club. So with that, I'd like to introduce Dawn. Dawn, it's all yours.
Okay, that was written very nicely. Can you write my bio for my website?
Dawn, I just copied and pasted that from Maine Media Workshops.
You did a great job. I think I might need to hire you for my next artist statement and bio. Thanks everybody for having me today. I'm really honored that you asked me to come, and I'm excited to talk a little bit about my work and how I kind of came through that journey to do the work that I do now. Kind of non-traditional, and therefore that's kind of shaped and stretched me as an artist and as a human being too, which has been a very good thing. I hope that y'all will feel comfortable to just ask questions. Please just horn in. I would welcome them. I would much rather listen than talk. I think like most artists. So I'm going to go ahead and start my PowerPoint for you guys. Can you all see this?
Yes, I can.
Everybody see it all right? Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. You know, I think all of us here are all creatives, and we all want to tell our stories in ways that best fit our own particular vision, and that we do that in a variety of different ways. I think that most of us have been trained in a very traditional way, and sometimes that's the way that we tell our stories, and then sometimes they are not. And so when we struggle to tell our stories in a way that's beyond the perceived norm in terms of space or medium or a variety of mediums and audiences, we struggle sometimes. I know that I did. I had a hard time thinking outside of the box. I'm sorry, I've had a hard time displaying outside of the box when I've been taught to be inside the box pretty much my whole life. And that was a pretty frustrating thing for me. I was never quite comfortable with just a photograph per se. I always wanted to push it a little farther and make it a little different. And so it was it was definitely a different kind of way of exploring photography. And it was daunting for me to think about that. Um, all of my inspiration for creating work has come from outside of the box, from a lot of different mediums, a lot of different artists. And so, struggling for a lot of years to stay in that box was really, really difficult. And so, living this many years, I think, and having this much life experience and being able to take some risks and define my voice and integrate it in this way was really important for me. And it took me a long time to kind of get my gumption to do that. And so this is why I work the way that I do. As Jay said, I started out as a studio art major at University of North Carolina, Greensboro. I minored in art ed. I I had learned the darkroom in high school, and so I was able to print and frame up a composition and develop film, and had a lot of fun with that. By the time I got to UNC Greensboro, I didn't take photography at all. I took every other medium that I could find, and just had a blast experimenting, especially with book arts, calligraphy, making paper, painting, pottery, all of those things. And it wasn't until I got out of college, I was working at an art gallery, that I got back into photography through the Light Factory. I was working and living in Charlotte, North Carolina. And Light Factory is a wonderful community of photographers. There's darkroom facilities, and they teach a lot of classes there, which we can all now take online. If you don't know the Light Factory, I highly recommend them. They're a great group of people. And so they kind of molded and shaped me to get back in the dark room and explore my photography in kind of traditional ways. And then my father unexpectedly died, and that led me to do some hospice work. I went back and got my master's degree. I was living in Georgia at that time. And for the next 20 years, I'd worked with hospice patients. I had the opportunity to be able to leave hospice in 2012, and really needed to at that time. I was really struggling with burnout, and I was feeling the creative bone again. I was beginning to get in touch with my art again, and it started to become bigger and bigger to me. So I've always had various relationships with my art through the years, and it was definitely the time to put it forward again. And then trying to integrate my life experience into my photography at that time. So this grid that you see in front of you is from 3 different bodies of work. The top 3 was the first serious body of work that I did. And that was in 2014, I think it was maybe. Excuse me, it's from The Leaving. And it was, it's really about upheaval and transition. Excuse me, it's about abandonment and isolation and things like that, that was happening in my life, and then, echoed from my childhood as well. These were I shoot with lens, baby. And so these were, very much layered and worked in Photoshop. I was beginning to develop my style at that point, been shooting with lens baby system since about, I think 2008 or so. I was starting to gel in terms of style and voice and things like that, um, at the leaving, and then the middle three of the white deer is from a project called Prancing Snowflake. And Prancing Snowflake, it's a long story. It was really a kind of a life-changing story for me about meeting this hunter who um, had actually had this white deer come up on his property, and um, he fell in love with this little deer. And then as the deer came to adulthood, the other hunters in the area said, we're going to kill that deer. We're going to get him. And so Mr. Hilliard got very scared because he knew that it would be a horrible death for this white deer that he loved so much. So he ended up pursuing the deer himself and shot the deer with one shot, and gave him a humane death. But it absolutely ripped him apart. And he still had this ongoing relationship with this deer that he had stuffed and taxidermied in his living room. And it just was very touching to me. And so, again, trying to relate experiences of loss and grief through the work that I was doing. And then the bottom three images are some from Sweeping the Graves, which is a straightforward memorial to the hospice patients that I've worked with over the years. So at the time that I was developing this body of work why isn't this advancing? I was also feeling the need to experiment more with it and take it to a three-dimensional level. So I began to build ephemera and pieces of art that, because I work very small, I wanted to experiment some with scale and kind of, a presence in a room, and how these small images could be built into something that was larger and could convey a message of what I was trying to tell. So I began to make these installations as a way of kind of then bridging the gap between 2D work and 3D work. And I wanted to create these spaces that were site specific, and they were organic in feel, and they could become kind of their own energy, and that a viewer would walk into them and become a part of them and be able to meditate on them and be able to kind of, it would kind of set a tone for them. And it began to feel very much like the way that I wanted to move forward. So this was the first installation piece that I built, and this coincided with the Sweeping the Graves project that I did. And this is called Memento Mori. Do y'all see this blue line over here? Is that, I don't know what that is from. Do you all see a blue line? Like,
I do. I don't know what that's from.
that is so weird.
I think you drew on the screen.
I think you have the option to draw on your screen, and you probably did it accidentally with your mouse. You were holding down the left mouse button.
Weird.
I don't know how to get rid of it.
I don't either. Well, you'll have to bear with it. So just know that blue.
Oh,
Oh, somebody did that. Who did that? Did I do that? I don't know. Anyway, it's gone. So this was a representation of grief for me. This installation piece. This is about, let me think. It's probably was about 10 feet wide and probably 15 feet tall. And if you can, see in there, there's a lot of different pieces in there. There's a box in there with an image inside. There's small little books that I've made that are hanging on linen thread. There's a bundled grouping of papers in there. And then of course, all the images. And then there's some other things, little medallions with images that I've made that have resin on the top of them and things like that. And so it starts with this empty frame with the pair of hands praying inside. It's in a black little pouch, and that's kind of the heartbeat of this installation. That's kind of how I build them when I go to. I kind of have an idea of how I'm going to lay them out, but I'm starting with the heartbeat of it, the middle of it, or the beginning place of it, and then kind of go from there. And so everything else is pretty extemporaneous. And it was built in this manner because I wanted it to articulate how grief is organic and how it ebbs and flows, and it has no beginning and it has no end. It's a series of moments, it's a series of emotions that can be jarring and taut and stabbing, and it's not predictable, it's very elusive, and they interact together. So it was a way for me to kind of bridge this idea of space and these blinks of an eye, these moments, when we're grieving or when we take in any moment of a day, there are moments that kind of go by and we don't remember them. And then there are moments that really stick with us and really stay with us. And that's kind of what I'm alluding to when I build these meditation walls. And I'll show you some more of them as well. But I'm going to show you these installations from Sweeping the Graves.
So Dawn,
yeah.
is your the wall installation you just showed, that's like a progression, it's telling a story. Instead of reading a book where you page through multiple pictures, yours is kind of like with big and small showing a little bit of movement or telling a story in a certain way. Is that
Exactly. Yes. It's, how, all of us have grieved, I'm sure, and we all remember those days that we feel like we had kind of tamed the beast maybe, and then we'll get a piece of mail with our loved one's name on it, and it'll just smack us in the head. And right again, we're right back in that moment. And, a lot of the grief theorists like to talk about how how we grieve in stages, which is a lot of bull crap, because we don't grieve in stages. We grieve, and they're not stages, they're feelings, and they'll come up and around at any given time of the day or night in any particular random order. We can go from anger to sadness just like that. And so that's the story. Yeah, it's the thing about the meditation walls that I really enjoy is that the viewer has the discretion to start where they want to and end and have their eye travel the way that they want to. Whereas in a book, you're going to curate it and you're going to sequence it a certain way for a viewer to take in. But these meditation walls are there for a viewer then to participate in any way that they like. And that to me is exciting, and also extremely pivotal to what grief is in this particular installation. Does that answer your question?
yes?
Okay. This piece is called Calling All Souls, and so I'm going to tell you guys that this was a wooden frame, like the triptych, those old oak frames, trifold things, and it was in broken pieces at the vintage store for $10, and I snapped it up and put it back together again. And so the middle two panels of this are actually tea bags. They have images of a woman's face. It's the same woman. She's in 4 different poses, and she's sandwiched between these tea bags. And I took matte medium. I dyed the tea bags. I put the image of the woman's face in between them, and then used the matte medium to adhere the tea bag to her face, and then to adhere the tea bags to one another. That thing is so strong. It is unbelievable what matte medium can do. The thing that was mind-blowing to me in creating this was that even though it was the same woman's face and the same 4 poses over and over and over on these screens, as I layered the tea bags on each of the images, they took on a different persona, or a different, it almost seemed like a different energy. Everyone looks different in some way. And it really was blowing my mind. And that was the effect of the layering, and the difference in the staining of the teas and the tea bags. And it was transformative for me. It was really, really fun to do that. And so this, I love altars. I love reliquaries. I'm a recovering Catholic. I was raised Catholic, haven't been practicing for many years, but that iconography of the Catholic Church and the ritual and all of that is ingrained in my pores. And so those things really speak to me a lot. And this was what I was trying to personify. This kind of speaks to how time changes and erodes us. And it speaks to our frailty. So
Hey, nice question.
yes.
This is a practical question. Is matte medium this similar to like Mod Podge?
Yeah, they're acrylic based. So they're pretty, yes, they are pretty similar. Yeah.
So it goes on opaque and then it dries clear?
Yes.
Okay,
Mhm.
thank you.
Mhm. Yeah. And they were actually matte mediumed onto the wooden frame too. And so it's just a velvet cloth over the table. And then inside there's a wooden box. It's got baby shoes. There's that oval frame has a frail, really fragile bookbind that's been, burned over time with acid from, the pulp of the papers. And then inside I hung a microscope that hangs, but you can't see it because I took a crappy picture of it. This was also part of Sweeping the Graves. This is a completely interactive piece, and it wasn't meant to be high art or anything like that, but something that, a place that people who viewed my show then could take and interact with in any way that they really wanted to. So I took an image of a tree, I put it on foam core, mounted it on foam core, and then I made a deep rabbet in the frame so that the image would stand far enough away that I could insert those branches inside, and people could tie ribbons in there in memory or in honor of their loved one. And so the box underneath that has the little wooden box, I filled that with white ribbons. And when I came to break the show a couple months later, you cannot believe how many ribbons were tied onto that. And it wasn't just ribbons. They ran out of ribbons long ago. And so they were doing things like putting gum wrappers on there and toilet paper and tissues and anything that they could find. And it was so moving. It was so moving that people took the time to do that and wrote in the book their impressions, and it was really spectacular. This show went to Alabama, and the local Unitarian church bought this piece and they use it now. So that makes me really happy that that they use it. So this is another, so this was the second meditation wall that I built. This was for a show with 10 other outstanding artists that was shown in Raleigh called Murmuration. And this was called Collective Consciousness. And we are a tight-knit group of artists, and so I wanted to incorporate all the energies of the other artists into this meditation wall. And so I asked them all to send me or give me one or two pieces or images that they wanted me to incorporate into the installation to kind of unify us all. And they did. Most of them did. A couple of them didn't. And so most of these images and ephemera are mine. There are, there's probably maybe maybe a fourth or a third of them maybe are pieces that are from them that I've incorporated in. And so, if I were going to say there was a heartbeat to this one, this would be the place of heartbeat. This is where I started to build this. So I didn't know the site that I was going to build it on. I didn't know it until the day that we hung this show. It took me 2 full days to hang this. It's a whole lot of placing, stepping back, grouping, pulling off, maybe putting more on. I use a lot of painter's tape to tape them up and decide. And then once they kind of become gelled for me and they start talking to each other and they start feeling like they're unifying, then I take straight pins and use the straight pins to hang them. And the reason why I use the straight pins is because they throw amazing shadows and they begin to interact with the images and the ephemera on the wall as well. And so it's super fun to do that. So here again, books that I've made, there's directly beneath the book with the 2 wings, that's got an overlay on it. I printed that on film and then laid it over another image. And then directly to the right and below it, I printed on film and then I worked the film with pencils and awl and things. So you can't really see it very well, but there's a lot of the ink that's laid down on the film is got almost like a relief print kind of to it. Boxes again that I've built, things like that. And the rough idea that I had for this was that because the title of the show was Murmuration, and it's about the energies of a lot of different people coming together and moving as one, I started it kind of heavier at the bottom and then had it come up and out. So these images go around the right-hand side of the wall and all the way around to the back of it as well. So there's probably about, I think I counted almost 400 pieces of ephemera and images on this.
And Dawn, are you printing your own images, darkroom, digital? Are you using existing old photos that you had collected?
I don't print in the darkroom anymore. Everything is digital. These are all printed. They were printed for this show because I wanted specific themes for this. There's duplicates of some of them too, which is on purpose. And then I think there might have been a few of these that were things, prints that I had already that I threw in. Usually when I have prints that have been laying around for a while, they get cut up and used as weird ephemera for, other things that I'm making. So you can see like there's the hands on the left-hand side. I reused those, maybe some of the books I reused, but I think that one probably had, I think there was only 20 images for that. And, there was almost 400 for that. So there's a whole lot of printing going on, whole lot of printing. Did anybody else have any questions about that one?
So once you come up with an arrangement that you like and appeals to you for the feel that you want, do you photograph it and keep that in case you want to display it? Or is this kind of like flexible where you can shift things around?
That's a super great question. It is, once it's down, it's gone. So the only history that I have that this even existed is through the photographs that I've taken. Everyone is different. I did I do Memento Mori twice? I'm trying to remember. I think I did it twice, but they were not the same. Yeah, I did. I did them in 2 different locations, but they were not the same. They were similar, but they were not the same. So these are completely one of a kind. They are ephemeral. They are gone. Once they're down, they're gone. This one's called Tapestry, and this was for a show in Savannah, Georgia, with 3 other wonderful women. This has a lighter feel. It's based in light. It celebrates womanhood, femininity, our friendship, and us as 4 artists together. It's more grid-like, and it starts with the chair on the bottom, which I'll show you, but it has references to nature and motherhood and sisterhood and you know, the strength of that and our ties to nature and to one another. These are some details. So on the bottom right is a transfer, and then underneath the little mic, the magnifying glass is there are 2 little wooden cubes with little tiny accordion book in between them. And then this one, I started playing around with silk. And this was the first installation that I used silk extensively, actually. So the wings on either side of the baby were printed, that's their silk, and they stand away from the wall with the pins. And what's great about that is that they flutter and float, and they also throw shadow. And they're a super interesting element that I've enjoyed adding into these installations. So just underneath that oval, there is another silk. It's a silk print over the same image printed on regular photographic paper. So it almost, so depending on how you're looking at it, your perspective is going to warp when you're looking at it from different angles. And this is the chair from where that installation started. And there again, it's images in tea bags that I cut up and stripped and then wove and put them together for this chair, and then put a light behind it. So on the bottom, you can see how that works. Little kid's chair. This one I built in my studio in here last year when I was going out of my mind, and still am with this pandemic. And it's called I Haven't Been Myself Lately. And this is all about feeling out of body and feeling altered and, you know, not, and feeling displaced and isolated. So a lot of this is the images cut out of the paper, and they are, you know, there's that 3-dimensionality of them, the same images, but all different. Lots of silk in this one too, and layering, just trying to make sense of our world for this, not just the pandemic, but everything really.
So Dawn,
Yes,
go back to the other one, please.
this
The
one?
no, the other one. No. Right, it was just the last image or so.
Oh,
Next. It was keep going. It was one of your more recent ones, of 1 or 2 before you just went backwards, I think. And not at the beginning, it was one of your more recent ones that you just showed us.
these are the ones that I just showed from the tapestry.
Okay.
There's the chair, and then this is the one.
Okay. Oh, that's it.
That's it?
You showed us a close-up one of that one. I see right there, the lower left one with the face and the eyes.
Uh-huh.
Are you digitally compositing photos, or are you doing that physically with layering of actual printed photos that are layered together?
That one happens to be silk over the image, but
Okay.
you know, sometimes I will in Photoshop play around with composites because it's fun. But that's actually done dimensionally.
Okay.
Yeah, which and that one, you know, the smack in the middle, the one that looks like the church, you know, the picture of the church there, or it wasn't really a church. I think it was, well, maybe it was. Anyway, that's the same image with on silk and then a print of it underneath it. So that's why it looks like it's, the perspective is different on that.
Are you printing on silk yourself?
Yeah.
Okay. Through an inkjet printer?
Uh-huh.
Okay. I guess you tape it down onto a sheet that leads it through the printer.
You can do it that way. You can also buy silk in rolls, and you can, and sheets as well to print directly on, and they have the paper behind them.
Okay.
I highly recommend doing that. We play a lot with that in my studio classes. If you want to take it, it's a lot of fun. We really have a lot of fun with that. So this is silk right here, then, Jay. So there's no image behind that. That is just the silk piece on the wall. And you can see the shadow of the silk behind it. It's just silk. But it's really fun when you print different images like that one and then put faces or whatever across it. And in fact, if you can, up on the top right-hand corner there, I did, there's an image of the tree underneath, and then I took the same silk piece or print, I guess I must have printed that because the other one sold, and put it over that tree. Can you see that? So there's actually a tree underneath the church. So it's playing
Oh, I
with,
see that. Yeah.
yeah, it's playing with
Top left.
uh-huh, top left, yeah. So that's how I place those with the pins. And what's laying behind those printed silk pieces is just tea bags. So they flutter and they float, and it's a fun dimension to play around with. So talk to you real quickly about the cranky work that I do, which is a different kind of three-dimensional work. A cranky, does anybody know what crankies are? Ever heard of them? They're, for any of you that may have dabbled in book arts, it's basically a scroll in a box, and you can tell stories. There's been a real resurgence of these. They've been around for many, many years. In fact, the Tibetans would tell stories about their monasteries using these scroll boxes. And so they're called a cranky because you actually crank the scroll through the box. It's a panoramic. And those top things are the cranks that actually move the story forward. And so I had an opportunity to make one of these, and my friend Lori sang, and we sang together, and we put this story together. And these are all my photographs then that I printed and seamed together to put as the story, to demonstrate the song. And it's super fun. You light it from behind, and you can, and I also made some puppets that you can put against the screen to add another element to your photographs. So if any of you are interested in crankies, there is going to be a mini cranky festival in Boston in 2 weeks. You can get tickets online. It's going to be all virtual. And I will be, I'll have a little mini cranky that I'll be displaying, a little show in there. But this is the big mama Gemma here. This is the big girl. And so she's, you know, cut out in the front, and then the cranks are on the top. And then this is what she looks like from behind. So you see the two scrolls that are wooden, and you attach one side of your scroll to one of the dowels and the other end to the other, and you crank it through. And it's really, really fun. It's real. I really highly recommend it if you want to play with your photographs that way, because it's you can get so creative and so imaginative with them. People are doing all kinds of amazing things with their crankies. They're putting them on carts and they're rolling them through, and it's really amazing what people do.
On about 3 years ago, I saw that exact same thing in a toy store for kids. It was a kit, 2 different sizes, and with all the instructions, etc. It looked very similar to what you just showed.
Did you get it? Did you do it?
No, we were afraid that our granddaughter wouldn't get into it. But,
Oh, but you could get into it.
she probably would now, actually.
You can play with it. You can be a big kid and play with it.
Now, you probably mentioned it, but those were printed on silk because of the semi-transparency of it. The
Nope,
light.
they were actually printed on regular old paper.
Wow.
And the light behind them, like that, you know, will show through. A lot of people will make their scrolls out of felt and fabrics. You just want to have it so that you can see through it. And the thing that's difficult about it, and I don't know if you can see it here, and you probably can't, but if you're trying to scroll it in time to a song, or you're saying, you know, words to it or something, what you do then is you just draw on the back of the paper so that you can tell what you're scrolling, because you're behind and you're cranking these and you really can't see what's going on in front of you. So you know, we write little notes and things to ourselves on the back so we know when to stop, or when to use the puppets, or, you know, when to speed up, or, you know, whatever. But that was just done on regular paper, and you just have to be careful. What I did with the images is I made them as cutouts. But if you didn't want to use your photographs, and that you could do, you know, you can just do cutouts with paper and things like that too. But I wanted to play with photographs for it.
Did you say the next one's in, or there is one in Boston?
Yes, I'll give you that information when
Pretty interesting. There's a whole bunch of these, and a number of them are sold out, have been sold out.
Oh, this one isn't though.
Yeah, but I mean, in other places.
Yeah.
It's a whole new thing.
Yeah, it is. It's really taking off. Yeah, this one will be on February 13th. And Catherine Fahey will be there, and Sue Truman, who are kind of the two big cranky gurus, and do amazing work, and very generous of heart and spirit. And there'll be demonstrations, and then there'll be, I mean, I think it goes on till like 10:30 at night. So you can pop in and out. There'll be demonstrations of how to make little crankies and all kinds of different things if you're interested. So this is just to kind of give you an overall of some of the object work that I do. And it's, you know, some of these were started and for early on, and to things that I've just did, you know, at the last 6 months. They're in lots of different media. Some are silk, some are transfers, some are on paper clay, some are on tin. Some are like accordion folds with pieces of images tucked in. There's a tea bag on the scroll, on a wooden spool up on the top, handmade boxes. You know, just this is all kind of the range of things that I like to do and have been playing with for now. Until I get more things to play with, but this kind of gives you an idea of the object work. Some of these are ephemera that I will put in an installation if I ever get a chance to show again. Some of them are standalone. So you can, you know, don't be afraid to, you know, take your photographs into this dimension and just, you know, hunt around for objects that you can base your photographs on, that then you can build into something else that say what you want to say as an artist, if this is something that you're interested in. It's a, you know, I'm all about giving meaning and history and layers, and you know, finding my own meaning through these object works and transitional objects and things like that that help get through difficult times. You know, that's my particular vision in doing these object works, but you might you will have a completely different vision, and finding the objects that speak to you and tropes that you'll marry to that will speak your language. It's very exciting. So this is again in tea bags. This is as I am, what is it? As I am, you will soon be. My father always used to say that. As I am, you will one day be. As you are, I was once. You know, that I love that. This is these are weights that I got in England, and this is called heavy lifting, the vintage weight. This was from Sweeping the Graves. I had this really sad broom. And the images are not cyanotypes, they are polymer prints. And then they were just adhered to the broom handle with PV, I think it was just PVA glue, actually, and a little methyl cellulose. I like to take frames and build them out so that they have depth, and then add things inside that you have to kind of peer into and look inside. So this has, this is a film overlay. It's hard to see, I know, but there's a film overlay. There's a Luna moth that was printed on the film, and then an image of a woman's face behind that I apologize, you can't see very well. This was done with encaustics. Been playing around with wax a lot and enjoying that. This was a book that was falling apart, and paired together to make this piece. This is a range of all the little boxes that I like to make. A lot of times I'll make these and then just dismantle them and start all over again. So I think I only got, some of these are sold, and then I have the one on the far left that's still intact, which is a miracle, but everything else I think, you know, I reuse. But I like to take apart tin types and daguerreotypes, and then if I don't want to use those findings, I'll use other things like Dresden paper, lace, and things like that to make little frames and findings and things like that.
I
And
guess,
then,
where do you find your materials? Home Depot, Lowe's, craft stores, anywhere?
yeah, anywhere I can find them. You know, I'm a big haunter of, you know, secondhand stores and Salvation Army, and we have great antique malls. Of course, I haven't been in a year. And Etsy. And also a friend told me that you can find things on Salvation Army online. Who'da thunk it? You can actually bid on them. I don't know how that goes. I haven't tried it, but if y'all let me know if you do that. And then just this last project that I'll talk to you real quickly about is the Silent Year. And I did this last year in the midst of the starting of the pandemic. And this project is really near and dear to my heart. I'm a big C.G. Jung fan and studied his work quite a bit. And he, for you all who may not know him, he is a Swiss psychiatrist who was a contemporary of Freud's, and he talked a lot about archetypes and transitions and things like that, and how we move through you know, periods in our life, and how we become try seeking to self-actualize, and how we learn and discover ourselves through an examined life. And so I had this image that I was playing around in Photoshop, and I began to try or on for size with different things, and started thinking about all of the different losses and transitions that we are all going through collectively through this pandemic and continue to. and realized that this woman could become kind of loosely based on Jung's archetypes, her own, this own little story of what I personally have been feeling going through this, all of these changes. So I've made the prints, or I, developed the images and decided that how would I be able to take this into a 3-dimensional element? And they really easily lent themselves to becoming a deck of cards. So I worked with a local printer and friend of mine who was able to print these for me. There's 22 of them, and I made a deck of cards. I assigned each with a term, like some of them are straight from Jung, like synchronicity and persona, and then some are I kind of fudged a little bit, like growth and gesture and introspection and things like that, and discordia, those kinds of things. And then just in the booklet, just wrote just things that you could meditate on, through, if you wanted to use this as a meditative or reflective kind of deck, you could pull one and maybe look through the booklet and have some ideas of things that you could meditate on or kind of ponder.
So Dawn, the questions in the chat about, are you finding these old photos in antique stores? Are some of the photos your own? What's the origination of the faces that we see right now, and your different photos?
This was a found photograph that I had gotten in a vintage store. I do use family photos as well. I try to use mostly family photos because they have more meaning to me than any old image. This I needed just a generic nose and mouth to build in upon this idea of all of these different archetype ideas. So I didn't have a problem using her. I have a video of how I erased her out and worked that, and I forgot to put it in this PowerPoint, and I apologize, but she was just a random image that I had purchased and have. And I don't know where she is. She's in a drawer somewhere. I'd pull her out so you could see what the original looked like, but I don't want to waste your time looking for it. I made this into a limited deck and it sold out, and I've since made a second edition of it, which is different. Has it's the same, but it's just has some differences to it, and they're for sale on my shop. And then these are some of the prototypes that I had as I was trying to figure out just exactly how I wanted these cards to look, and they're all a little different. And luckily, I knew I had to work with a printer to do this, and he really put up with all my nonsense. I mean, I'm not too picky about things. I don't think anyway. So he was really, really great to work with, and he tolerated me really well. So, and so this concludes the end of our day that I can think of for now. If you want to get in touch with me, you can email me or you can grab me on Instagram. That's my website, and that's my big cartel shop. All I have is a deck of cards in there right now, and I can show you. I will show you in person. the deck of cards that I'm working now that is a handmade. So I really suck at clamshell boxes, but I actually made one that fits, and just a simple one. And I'm working on building a handmade deck finally, and it's super time consuming, but it's really great because all I got these days is time. And so I'm working these cards with, I'm scratching them and tattering them, sandpapering them, and then I'm working over them with oil paints and colored pencil and beeswax, and just having a ball with them. So my goal is to make them all, finish them all one of these days, and then some rich collector is going to buy them and support me. That's my pipe dream anyway, but right now I'm just having fun making those. So so there you go. So that's it, I think.